Okay, so I was thinking of a video to create today. It's Friday, the 1st of May. And I made a comment on a video yesterday. The video was talking about why we don't see more black men in corporate, in high positions in corporate and all of that. And I was just giving my 2 cents on the situation. And I wrote a comment that went along the lines of, we just get tired of working for a wage, sacrificing our integrity. So we just start our own businesses. At least that's what I got tired of. So I just thought I'd use this opportunity today just to talk a little bit about my story and why I started my business in the first place, and just my experience kind of growing through the corporate ladder as a black male living in London, born and raised. Yeah. So, where do I start? Okay, let's start before university. Before university, I was working in a care home. I've always had a lot of jobs. Always been kind of like hopping from one job to another, whether I got tired of it or whatever, just being honest. But my last job before I started university was in a care home. Loved it. Learned a lot about dementia and that disease, and just seeing people go through that whole process, and that was interesting. I was there for about 3 years. Left when I got not no, this wasn't before I started university. This was my first job after university. So I got a job in marketing and graphic design. They combined two roles into one, and it was all good. It was all good. But then I was situated in a small office with I was the only black dude in the office, which was fine. There was an Asian guy, three Asian guys, and two white guys. Just a caveat, I've never had a problem with being the only black in the office, but I must make the point that in most jobs that I've had, I've been the only black in the office. Whether it's 10 people in the office or 100 people in the office. In a company, I've been like one. If there's 100 people in a company, I might be the three, one of three. But anyway, we keep going, we keep moving. I was in this job and I started to experience a lot of microaggressions. I remember my manager saying to me, "Oh, calling me Nigel." I'm like, "Nigel? Why are you calling me Nigel?" Because I can't call you the N word. I thought that was very, very strange. And I remember going off on site and doing some work with another guy, Asian guy, and we were off on site doing work, and it was a great day. After our shift, we went to get a sandwich, I think, from like a local cafe before he had to hop on the train or whatever, and I had to hop on the bus. And he asked me how I would feel, and this was when I first started within the company, maybe within the first month. He asked me how I would feel if he used the N word. I was like, well, I can't stop you from saying what you want to say, but I personally would feel hurt if I heard my colleagues just using that willy nilly around me. It's just not a word that I use. Why would you want to use that? And he said before I started, they used to this is how they used to talk in the office. And there it is, me just being opened up, once again. And I'd experienced racism before that point in my career as well, but there it was, just opened up to me, just kind of like blatant racism, and me just having to sort of like make the decision there, because I don't want to be seen as the problem in the office. I don't want to be seen as the guy who has a chip on his shoulder and all of those stereotypes that it's very easy to kind of like someone to stick on you when you're the only one. But there we have it. I told him how I felt about it, but I also gave him the openness to say, look, I can't tell you what to say, but I'd personally just not be happy with it. And within myself, I'm just not a sort of go to HR sort of person. I've never had to experience any of that. Anyway, months go by, probably years at this point, and we listen to music in the office, absolutely fine. No one's using the N words or anything like that. And but I remember on two occasions it was used when they thought I was wearing headphones. In the office, I'm one of those ones. I'm guilty of just wearing headphones when I'm in deep work. But I'm not playing any music. I'm just trying to stifle out any talking or any noise around me. And yeah, there it was. The two Asian guys, or just one Asian guy, just using on multiple cases. The guy who called me Nigel was my boss, what was my manager, the studio manager. So anyway, I always knew that I wanted to be some sort of entrepreneur. But I guess it started from there because I wanted to be in environments where I controlled the narrative, and I could as much as possible protect my mind. I could just protect sort of like the energy that was faced towards me. Because up to this point in my career, I just found that racism, I felt at this point in my career, and bear in mind this is my first job after uni, like first career job. I just felt like, oh, maybe this is just how it is. Maybe this is the racism that like our parents spoke about. Maybe this is the microaggression that people talk about, and that this is just part and parcel of the workforce. Maybe I just can't take the banter. You know what I mean? But I'm taking it because I'm staying, and I'm not leaving because I'm just like, well, if I leave this job, then I have to start again. I have to. I've kind of like lost momentum in my career ladder, and just looking at job applicants and whatever. I guess I was just aware that the marketing creative industry just did not look like me for the most part. So I was like, I can't afford to just quit because I'm upset because a couple guys called me the N word, or they're using microaggressions, or they're using slurs, you know. And I wasn't gonna tell the HR because I just felt like they were all friends. So there I was, just stuck in that position. But so that's a little story, a little sideway kind of side quest on sort of why I made that comment in that Instagram post. Because you really have to sell your integrity in order to navigate in the workplace. I don't know the statistics. I don't know if I believe that more black women start businesses than black men. But just speaking for myself, and I've discussed this at length with my wife and my other friends, of whom are black. I think I might have mentioned this to friends or colleagues of different races, and it just doesn't really go anywhere. And I'm not I'm not trying to be that sort of like, oh yeah, there's this us and them mentality, because I've never felt like that. But with all the racist things that have happened towards me, it's never been sort of like I stay far away from racism because I'm very aware that I'm a big black guy with a beard and bald head. I'm aware that for some it might come across as intimidating or aggressive or something like that. So I always stay far away from it. But it's somehow always found a way to come to me. Where are you from? Where are you really from? And things like that. I don't have an issue with that or whatever. The pro though is that through going through all of this, I've been able to callous my mind and just callous the way I feel and react to that sort of stuff. So if someone did say the N word or whatever near me, it wouldn't really be a massive problem because I've now created a life for myself where I can just not be around you. I'm not forced to be in a 9 to 5 where I need to sit next to you and share and discuss and all of this. But yeah, I just wanted to share that. I think I think there's a shift happening at the moment. There has been a shift happening for a long time. And people are very aware that they can just create lives for themselves. They can use AI, they can use digital marketing, digital products. You know, they can really help people and create money remotely from the comfort of their home office, in my case. So yeah, that's why I made that comment, and it's quite sad that, people in general feel like they need to escape the corporate, the 9 to 5, the games, and create their own thing in order to find peace. But that's just my story. That's just my story. And yeah, I'm sure that there's loads of other people with loads of their own kind of like stories, and what they went through in corporate and why they chose to not kind of like raise up the ranks. So another reason is, so racism is one reason. Another reason is I just found that, obviously going into a company as the only one, it can be a pro as well, because you bring that diversity of thought. I come from I have a different kind different background, in some cases. For me, I have a Jamaican background. I was raised in a Jamaican home. My mum is Jamaican. My siblings, my family, they're all Jamaican. I was born here, but I have that sort of like spin on things. Also raised in a council estate, that whole story, I was raised on estates. We talk a certain way, South London, Battersea, and all of that. So I have that. But I just found that when I was working in corporate, that I find that the people that, obviously there's less black people, and I'm just talking on behalf of black people, but this could go for Asians or whatever. I'm not talking about them because I don't know all the nuances of that culture. But say for example, yeah, I join a company, right? Not 9.9 times out of 10, the leadership is mostly white. There might be some other kind of like person of color there, right? I hate that term, but there'll be another person there, right, from another background that isn't white. They're making all of the decisions, and they're also kind of like hiring. So they're hiring their friends who are people like them, which is fair enough. But they hire their friends, and then they elevate them to positions of power as well. So you really don't get a look in unless, I don't know. For me, I just didn't want to forsake who I am. I didn't want to act like someone I'm not. I didn't want to pretend to laugh at silly jokes, or jokes that I just didn't find funny. And sometimes there's just a disconnect in culture, like, and most black people will empathize with this. When you go into an office and you see someone else that looks like you, it gives you a bit of an uplift, because on a bad day, on a bad day, or in a tough meeting, or you have someone to confide in, you can just go to that person and you can just have your banter. You can have your time to kind of like release a little bit. But a majority of the time you just don't have that. And that's another reason why I started my own company. Also, the fact that, on the come up in my career, I was, because I didn't see a lot of people like me in good positions, right? Going back to what that caption was, what that post on Instagram was originally talking about, because I didn't see that often. I always felt like, I always felt as though, um, maybe it just isn't going to happen for me, and I need to find another way, or I need to work multiple jobs and all of that. And I did that for a long time, before I started my company, which I'm running now. Um, so what that would look like is, yeah, I felt like I had to do a lot of things, and but once I kind of went kind of fully in on myself and started making good money, started making like a lot of money, doing the same marketing that I'm doing for someone else for myself. I'm making more money, you know, than maybe my manager's manager. It just didn't make sense that my my opinions, my thoughts weren't kind of pushed to they just they weren't upheld all the time. And they don't need to be upheld all the time, but I just felt like, I've somehow used marketing to outside of the confines of my 9 to 5 to build something. And that's what marketing is. I've somehow communicated my skills in a way that I've been able to monetize off of it and make more money than maybe the director here, right? One of the directors or whatever. Yet somehow, like, when I push the ideas that are working for me, for the company, it just isn't held to the level of respect that I liked. And once you get to a stage where you kind of, the penny drops for you, and you just realize, damn, like, I could just do this for myself, create my own space, create a safe space for others, and I'm not saying that, well, if I had a studio or whatever, it wouldn't be a case of, oh, I just hire black people. No way. Like, it wouldn't be that. But, I hire people with the right attitude. Do you know what I mean? You have to have the right attitude. And if I heard any racism in my office, you're done for. You're gone immediately. I just remember those days. It just sucked, mate. It just sucked. I remember one day in particular, like, I cried in my car, because I was just like, man, like, I wanna be successful. I wanna be so successful. And at the time, I wasn't thinking of being an entrepreneur in order to make that happen. I was just thinking, like, I just want to rise up in my career. And it just felt like, people that I show so much love to, like, they just hate me. It made me think, like, what sort of things do they say when I'm not in the room? And this is a scary sort of video to make, because everyone that I know who is someone who has some sort of position in industry, it is white. They're not black people. And if they see this, they might think, oh, Earl has a vendetta or chip on his shoulder. I don't, but I'm just talking about the real of what it's been like for me rising up in my career, and you know what? I own my own company now, and I have my clients, and I love my clients, and we get on like a house on fire, and I produce great work for them, and they cooperate with me, and they trust me, and I just feel so blessed to have that. You know what I mean? And when I look at people in their 9 to 5, when I hear the stories and stuff, I just feel so sorry for them. I just feel so sorry, and I just hope that they one day open their eyes and see that, there's a whole world out there, and you're being lied to. You're being lied to. You think that you think you're going to get that management position. It's going to be enough. It's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough. Not in this economy. Not with this government. You know what I mean? So anyway, I just wanted to share that. It's the 1st of May, and yeah, there's so many bright things happening in the future. I would have never made a video like this, but maybe having my son a couple of weeks ago has really really drawn into perspective, what's important and what's not. And I wouldn't want him to kind of go through what I've gone through, and it makes me want to work harder in order to give him a safe space if he wants it. If not, then he can go out and find himself, and I'll always be there for him. That's what I needed to do for myself. That's what worked for me. There was no backup in my family. First generation. I'm first generation. My families came here for a better life. So, like, there was their focus. I wasn't being raised in the same way as some of my peers in school. Like, it was just, they're just trying to survive, put food on the table, and I'm basically helping them do that, just by being here. Children of immigrants, you know what I mean? But yeah, anyway, that's the video. Let me know your thoughts, like, if you agree, if you disagree, I'd love to hear it. Or not, whatever, do what you want. Comment below, share, like, subscribe, all of that. Cheers, bye.